And we are live. I'd like to welcome everybody to a very special edition of the Bassin Magazine podcast. Folks, Bassin Magazine. Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. With us tonight, I have a very special young man, a man by the name of Hunter Sales. Hunter Sales has one of the coolest jobs I've ever heard of, man. He is the head bass coach of collegiate bass fishing powerhouse, Carson-Newman University. How are you doing tonight, Hunter?
I'm doing great, Jay. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a blast with you.
Man, it's always, it's a pleasure to talk to you too. Why don't you tell the folks what lakes that Carson-Newman is close to?
Yeah, so Carson-Newman, a big reason the fishing team has been successful here. We're pretty much situated right in between the banks of Douglas and Cherokee Lakes. We're about 5 minutes from Cherokee and about 10 from Douglas, so definitely a bass fishing paradise.
My goodness, man. I don't even know what to say about that,
Yeah.
That pretty much says it all right there. You guys are right there. If you want to practice, well, 5 minutes we can be on the water.
Yeah, that's the a lot of people ask, and we do some inter-squad tournaments for the team, but a lot of people ask, how does practice look? The reality of it is a lot of my job is making sure they're in class and not practicing too much.
I can see that, that, man. I can see that, No, man. I want to go fishing. Heck with
that. Yep.
People say, fishing can be there anytime,
Yeah, no, it's a blessing, man. We're in a great location, Jefferson County, Tennessee, and that's actually one of our bigger team sponsors as well, is Visit Jefferson County, and so the fishing is just a huge part of this community.
Wow, that is I just can't believe that. You're in a perfect place for fishing, but also on top of being the head bass fishing coach for Carson-Newman University. Why don't you tell the folks what else you're doing this year?
Yeah, so it's been a busy year for sure. A lot of nights in a hotel. So in addition to serving as the head coach at Carson-Newman, I'm also fishing all 9 Bassmaster Opens as a pro. I took the leap into that journey this year. I've kind of been fishing one division for the last few years, and I really want to qualify for the Elite Series. So in today's world, that's the best route to get there, is by fishing all 9. So it's been a cool experience.
Man, with all the changes at Bassmaster, that might be the only way you can do it.
Yeah, no, it is going forward. That's the only way to make it, and that's been a source of controversy. There's some good and some bad in that. So I can kind of see both sides.
Well, I don't talk controversy on my podcast, but what I'm going to say is it is what it is.
Right.
You play by their rules if you want to play their game, and man, Bassmaster definitely runs a Class A tournament.
Absolutely.
You can't please that many people.
Right. Yeah, it's impossible. I learned that with coaching too. You got to make a decision that you think's best for the majority and go on, because you're always going to have some adversity. But
you're always going to be somebody who thinks that sucks.
Right. Yeah, but I think Bassmaster had the interest of the anglers in mind when they made the decision. I don't. It definitely didn't make everybody happy, but I think they're looking out for the long-term well-being of most anglers. So I can't complain about that.
Man, you said it very well, and it's great to have you on the Bassin Magazine podcast.
Yes, sir.
Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. You certainly have set yourself apart from weekend anglers as much as you fish. But the reason we have guys like you on, because weekend anglers don't have time to spend. Guys like me who work 2 jobs, I don't have time to spend 6-8 days on the water at a time.
Right.
So when I get out there, I have to, also I do well for myself, but I certainly don't have enough money to buy a forward-facing sonar either.
Right.
So when I get out there, I have to rely on information imparted to me by guys like you.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm blessed to be able to get on the water as much as I do, in any way that I can share that. I'm definitely happy to do so.
So, where was the last tournament you fished?
So I fished a little Tuesday nighter last night on Douglas Lake with my girlfriend, and we actually won that tournament. So that was good. But
you won it.
we did, yes, sir. Yep. We before that, I'd been up at Lake Oneida in New York. That was the last open that I had.
There's what I wanted to hear.
Yes.
Okay, so you're up on Lake Oneida. Man, up in that area has produced some unbelievable. Look what the elites did up there.
Oh my gosh, yeah, the St. Lawrence River. We actually, so the day after the Oneida tournament,
Sure.
My travel partner Cole Sands, we went up to the St. Lawrence River, and it's just a special place up there.
It sure is. So on Lake Oneida, how were you catching smallmouth bass?
Yeah, so Lake Oneida, I actually had a really good first day. I had 17 pounds pretty much on the dot. I think I had 16, 15. I was catching pretty much every fish that I weighed in on a Ned rig, Z-Man Ned rig. But up there, black is a big deal for whatever reason. I don't know. You got the black hair jig, the black Ned rig. It seems like that's a
maybe
good
they were probably feeding on leeches.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I know gobies are a big player there too.
Gobies, yeah. I just said leeches because leeches are black.
Right, that's true. Yeah, that very well could have been what it was. But you had to use a super light head. I was throwing a 10th ounce and just fishing it, on isolated rock piles and things like that. But man, catching those big smallmouth on 6 or 8 pound test that's one of my favorite things to do. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, let's talk about the Ned rig. I've caught smallmouth bass on Ned rigs by both casting it out there and just letting it sit. And also I've caught them by doing what I call the old drunk in the morning.
Right, right.
It seemed to me like in the mornings when they're out on, I like to use Ned rigs on just sand flats.
Right.
Very little structure. When the smallmouth bass are just roaming, looking for food on the bottom.
Right.
How were you imparting action, or were you imparting action?
Yeah, so it was actually a pretty cool deal. So like I said, I was fishing very isolated rock piles, probably as big as the front deck of my boat. And so what I was actually doing, and I started off a lot like what you're talking about. You throw it out and you would work it back to the boat. And I was catching some fish, but what I saw was like 90% of my bites, I'd watch them on forward facing, and it was coming on that initial fall. So as soon as you would throw it out, before it ever hit the bottom, you would have one. And so, by the end of the tournament, what I was doing, I was pretty much throwing at the rock pile. And as soon as it hit the bottom, I would maybe hop it one time and then reel it in and throw it again. And if they didn't bite in the first 4 or 5 casts, you might as well leave because they weren't going to bite.
That's actually how I work a weightless wacky rig.
Okay.
Cast it out there, let it hit the bottom, reel it in.
Yeah.
Of course, down here where I live, the water's only about 1.5 feet deep, so it doesn't take much time to do this,
Right. Yeah, this may have been 15 to 18, so it took a little bit longer, but I had some weight too.
So 1/4 ounce, 1/8 ounce.
I was throwing a 10th.
A 10th ounce.
10th ounce head, yes, sir. Yeah.
So in 15 feet of water, you're like, wait. It's not there yet.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why they were biting on the fall too. I mean, it was falling so slow; they get a really good look at, they know it's coming before it ever gets down there. So if they're going to eat it, it doesn't. I mean, if they see it and they want it, they're going to go grab it before it ever gets to the bottom.
So we have a couple of comments here. First of all, Cajun Rob, good friend of mine. He's from Southern Kentucky. Of course, he mostly fishes Tennessee. He says that you're also about 90 minutes to Chickamauga.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's correct.
And also Fishing the Dot says, hello, everybody. Hello, Fishing the Dot. Thank you for tuning in. I love you guys who tune into the podcast and make comments. That is so cool. So these guys came to listen to you, Hunter.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm not that interesting.
I can give good info.
I'm not that interesting. So, but man, I love talking smallmouth, man. I live down here in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
And, I'm from the Northland. I'm from Northern Illinois, and I spent my entire life up until the first 45 years of my life up in Northern Illinois, fishing Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, Canada.
Yep. I'm actually heading down to Shreveport to Bossier City in the middle of September for the Red River Open. So I'll be down your way.
That's a little different. That's like different.
Yeah, the Red River in September. That's not exactly how you define ideal bass fishing circumstances.
But also, it's different than the rest of Louisiana.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just not the same.
Yeah, I've never been to Louisiana, period. So that'll be an experience for me.
Well, and you've been fine.
Right. Yes, sir. Yeah, I guess I have.
I had to throw that in there. Cajun Rob said, Hunter, you have a team of hammers, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, man. I couldn't say enough good things about the group of guys and girls we have here.
Here's one thing, every time I've had you on my show, which has been quite a few times now, I've said, Hunter, you're the coach. Stack the deck, Hunter. And man, you took that little bit of you knew you had to stack the deck, but you certainly have. Jackson Orr. Guys, if you're not familiar with Jackson Orr, this kid had enough money from fishing kayak tournaments to buy his own boat before he graduated high school.
Mm-hmm.
The kid is next level.
Yeah, and the work ethic. It's that's the things we look for with recruiting is that character, the work ethic, the ability, and a kid like Jackson, you get so lucky when they've got all three. So we've definitely been blessed with that.
Don't they call it the total package?
Yeah, that's like the 5-tool guy in baseball. That's what you look for.
The golden ticket, yeah.
Yes, sir.
You get him. He gets to go to college. He gets to fish bass tournaments while he's in college. He gets the support of the team. You look good. Carson-Newman, it's good all the way around to get a guy like him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And our hope is that we can help educate him on a few things to further his career and to tap it to the full potential, because he's going to make a career in the industry. It's just a matter of, how successful we can be. Right.
Yeah. Just a matter of where. Is he going to be a professional tournament pro? He's going to college. Is he going to be the president of Daiwa someday?
Yeah. You never know.
I just said Daiwa because I like Daiwa, but wow, that's incredible. Okay, here's a question. You as the coach,
okay.
How do you search out bright young talent like Jackson Orr?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So in the early years, it was a lot more. I would scour social media. I would be at the tournament weigh-ins, and I still do those things. But what's funny is once you get a core group of high character, high talent, high drive individuals, it seems to attract more of those same individuals. And so, we've been able to play the monopoly effect almost and kind of let the dominoes fall. I guess the domino effect would be a better phrase. And it's cool how much the guys and the team and Lee Rose and the girls, they actually, they recruit really well for us because they have friends that have the same drive and character that they do. So we've been. I was
going to say, you got Lee Rose, and you got Lee Rose's younger brother too.
Yeah, Carter. Carter's a good fisherman. He needs to be one of our top boats this year.
So success breeds success is what you just said.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Yeah. Talented people want to be around talented people. So once we got lucky with the first few and we're able to draw them to Carson-Newman, and they had it. And the key is, we're not just luring kids here. When they get here, they're having good experiences. And so then the word spreads that they feel supported. They're having fun. They're getting opportunities. And once that word spreads, it becomes a lot easier to do your recruiting.
That sounds awesome. I was thinking about this today as I was at work, man, I want to ask him this. That's when I know I have a really good guest, when I'm sitting there thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. That's a good question.
What's the best?
That's the key to the whole thing, Jay. You're making me give the secrets away.
There are no secrets, man.
No, I'm just kidding.
Not even in fishing. I know way back when, when you pulled up on a tournament fisherman, they would drop their lines down so you wouldn't know what they were doing. Just by the way you're standing in your boat and you're holding your rod, I know what you're doing.
Yeah, and now it's all on YouTube anyways, so.
Yeah. But I way back when guys were so secretive. The funniest thing I ever saw, Hunter, I was fishing a walleye tournament on the Illinois River, which is about 3 miles from my house where I used to live in Illinois. And a tournament icon, God rest his soul, he's no longer with us, but he was going down, and this guy was one of the coolest guys you ever knew. But he was going down in his big old Ranger boat, looking all I'm Tommy Scarless, and he was holding a rod. And what he didn't know is the fish that he was trying to make sure that nobody knew he had hooked, because he was going by a whole pack of boats. It was skiing in back of him.
Oh my gosh.
He was trying to be nonchalant, and everybody, hey, nice fish, Tommy.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, we always think we're a lot more secretive than we really are, probably.
That's, gosh, man, I've been in the tournament world since 95, and I don't even care anymore. Or, with my health condition, I can't stand up and fish in a boat for more than about 2 or 3 hours at a time now. So,
right.
I have enough experience to last my entire rest. I can still fish for myself now, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it.
Oh man, that's the whole key.
No pressure, man. No pressure.
Yeah. I had more fun last night fishing that Tuesday nighter than, with a group of guys that were all friends. I mean, that's what fishing's about. That's how I grew up. That's why I got the bug. And so it's fun to be able to forget about the stressful side of it sometimes and just go have fun.
Because in my prime, man, I was guiding, for the 4-month guide season in Illinois, I'd be guide 4 or 5 nights a week, sometimes all weekend long, and go off and fish tournaments on the weekends sometimes. And
yep, it burns you out quick if you're not careful.
Yeah, you would have thought I was a welder, as rough as my hands were, as much as I had the the rods in my hands. Man, you must work hard. I said, I've never thought of fishing as work.
Right. Yeah. No, it feels like it some days though, when you're out there and it's snowing or whatever it's doing, it doesn't always, you have to remind yourself that it's fun sometimes.
As a walleye fisherman from Northern Illinois, I have fished plenty. And man, I would go out in February. If the river was open, I'd be out there.
I'm sure. Yeah. No, you have to, because your clients want to go,
Well, I very rarely got a client to go out when it was around 20 degrees. But no, man, just for myself, just out there, I'm the only boat out here and I'm catching fish, man. This is so cool.
Right.
Because I've sat in the same spot and had, had boats 360 degrees away. It's walleye fishing, man. They get in tight little packs and everybody's right there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that's one of those things. It's kind of like Florida on a good grass bed. I mean, there's, the fishermen are going to be where the fish are. And if you're not around them, you're probably in trouble.
Everybody's casting to the same grass. I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Jay, let me ask you a quick question. If I turn my phone sideways, is that going to mess anything up?
Your phone sideways.
Like if I go like this, I can plug it in.
Yeah. See?
Is that okay?
No, it's fine.
Okay. We try to get it balanced here. I don't want to. I was having some battery issues there, and I don't want it to go dead on us.
Oh.
See if I can get it balanced. Hold on. Sorry.
That's podcasting, man. It's kind of like tournament fishing. There's always something.
Well, that ain't gonna work. We'll get it. We'll get it right here. I'll let it charge for a little bit. And does that work?
Fine, man. That's fine. That works. But podcasting is kind of like tournament fishing. There's always something. Always.
No.
Can you hear me?
Just roll with the punches. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, so back to Carson-Newman, and where is your next tournament at? So
I'm actually Carson-Newman fishes the College National Championship on Labor Day weekend on Winyah Bay, and so we're getting ready for that, getting excited about that, and then after that I head to the Chesapeake Bay for the next Open.
2 title fishers.
Yeah, tidal. And that's something we're a little bit unfamiliar with here. My first trip to tidal waters was on the James River back in April. I actually came away from that with a 12th place finish. So I don't hate tidal right now, but I'm pretty inexperienced with it.
Okay, so tidal bass.
Okay.
Tidal bass. Wow. I fish tidal fisheries a lot down here. I can tell if the water's moving, the fish are biting.
Yeah.
That's the long and the short of it. But man, most of what I do down here is either I I throw Senkos, and I'm not a fan of the Gary Yamamoto Senkos, but
Really?
down here they're a little beefier. They fall a little faster than all the. And I throw a lot of those down here.
Yeah, they have that heavy salt content. That's actually I like them for that reason. But there's different situations where you have to go to different brands.
With how shallow everything is down here, I like things that sink a little more slowly.
Okay.
And a lot of guys argue with me about that. They say, "Well, you're looking for a reaction bite." I'm like, "Are you?"
Yeah, you don't know.
Really? Well, reaction bite, and you don't know. You don't know the mood of the fish. If the tide starts changing, those fish can turn on. All of a sudden, they're hungry.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where, when
the tide's not changing, you're looking for a reaction bite, definitely, because they're not going to bite. But if you piss them off, but also one thing we do a lot of down here is punching.
Okay.
Because man, you can go through one of the tidal marsh. You're going through a bayou or a tidal marsh. And you're real close to salt.
Right.
You can go down there and run your side lookers, and there is nothing in the channel. I mean, it is just devoid of life.
Yeah.
But you start punching, and there's one.
Yeah.
What did you find on the James River?
So the James River, it was in April, and so their fish were really close to the spawn, and so I was flipping cypress trees. They were spawning on those deeper cypress trees. But what was cool is there'd be little places where, call it a ditch or a little bitty creek or something like that. And on high tide, the ones that were good, on low tide they barely had any water at all in them, and on high tide they had 2-3 feet of water. And so what would happen is at low tide, all those fish would pull to the first piece of cover on the outside of that creek mouth. And man, I had one that had a duck blind at the mouth of one of those ditches. And I think I weighed in 8 out of the 10 fish that I weighed in over 2 days on that one duck blind. And so it was a really special place.
Well, you better be careful if you're fishing that bayou. Woo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Down here, you see so many boats that are stranded.
Oh, really?
Well, you're not paying attention. You're in there. You're on a good bite, and it's getting better. It's getting better. The water's going faster. All of a sudden, you're stuck.
Yep. Yeah. There were some boats at the James River doing the same thing. I mean, you definitely had to pay attention to your mapping when you were running around and kind of know how much it fluctuated.
Just pay attention, man. If you're in a foot of water now, it's only, or if you're in a foot and a half of water now, it's at 1 foot of water, and you haven't moved. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Right.
And
when we were there,
faster than you think, man.
Yeah, well, we got there on I guess it was like a 3/4 moon, but it was leading up to a full moon, and so every day that it was fluctuating more and more and more, and so places that you thought you could get into and out of by tournament day, that fluctuation was a little bit more extreme than it was a few days ago, and so it definitely got harder to get around as the week went on.
Well, it got harder to get around, but as the tides get stronger, I think the fishing gets better.
Yeah.
But also, as always, full moons are just because you can't fish at night during a tournament.
Right.
Yeah. So it just seems that's just my luck, man. Every time I get to go fishing, every time someone, hey Jay, you want to go tomorrow? Yes. So I'm driving there, look up, there's a full moon.
Yep.
Great. I'm going to get there at 6, just in time for the light to start, and the fish are going to bed.
Yeah. It seems like I don't know what it is that the fishing powers that be have against the weekend anglers, but man, it rains every Saturday and Sunday that there are.
Unless if you're in Baton Rouge, then it rains every day.
Yeah, that's true too.
I think the last 14 days in a row we've been just inundated. Here, this guy Keegan Robb just said, any tips to co-anglers fishing out of the back of boats in the opens?
Yeah, man, there's actually, I have a ton. We could write a book on this. And so some of the co-anglers that I've had that have been the most successful, they stuck to their guns. They knew what their strengths were. And a lot of times you have to realize what your boater's doing and do something opposite. Like when I'm going down the bank throwing a crankbait, don't try to go cast for cast with me with a crankbait. Drag a small swim bait behind the boat, or something like that. It's the same type of presentation, but a little bit more subtle. And there's a lot to be said for building a good relationship with your boater, because I know that if the first few hours of the day, my co-angler is really respectful, not pushing me the whole day. When I go to retie, he's not throwing over my shoulder and things like that. Then as the day goes on, you start to develop a friendship with the guy, and you want to see him succeed. And so there's a lot to be said about just being respectful and being courteous and sticking to your strengths. I had a co-angler that won the Open on Lake Norman last year, and he was a great guy. And so by the end of the day, I was like, man, you got a good bag. I'm gonna let you throw first on that brush pile, just because when he's a good guy, you want to see him do well, And so that'd be my advice.
That's good advice. That's good advice. Thank you, Rob, for a great question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're going to be on a tidal fishery. That's wow. I'm thinking how I want to phrase this question. So when you're on a tidal fishery, what kind of things do you look for to start targeting?
Well, so based on my one time that I was up at the James River, and I had some success. When I go to the Chesapeake, that's the type of areas that I'm going to look for. I'm going to look for the areas where the fish are going to draw to at low tide. And I do have some experience. So Cherokee and Douglas, they fluctuate about 40 feet between summer and winter pool.
40 feet.
About 40 feet. Yeah, it's extreme. But it's taught me over the course of my life, when that water's falling, how fish position. And so it seems like isolated cover, at the mouth of a major creek or an arm where they've been living, as the water falls, they're going to pull out to that first piece of isolated cover. And so that's really the way that I've tried to approach tidal fishery. And, when the water's rising, the opposite of that, it really seems like you can't get shallow enough to keep up with them. I mean, the shallower you can get, the better when it's rising.
Well, I can tell you, fish a lot of tidal stuff, and I've literally caught fish. It's mostly reds. I mean, I don't fish for a whole lot of bass down in the marsh.
Yeah,
but I've caught reds that had their backs out of the water.
That's right. Yeah, it's cool because I think a lot of the tidal fisheries are the same, but I know like the James had fiddler crabs, and what you would see is as the tide was falling, those fiddler crabs would be working towards the water, and every now and then one would fall in. And when it fell in, I mean, it was a straight up feeding frenzy. And so I've actually got my hands on a few of the new Z-Man Kicker Z crabs that have just came out, and I'm pretty excited about putting that to work on Chesapeake Bay.
Hey, check out mojotackle.com.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Look at their Mojo, MOJO tackle.com.
Okay.
They have some really good shrimp baits,
mm-hmm.
and a couple of crab baits too. They look really realistic. And when I'm fishing, I mean, this is for speckled trout and reds, but also I've caught a lot of bass on those things too.
Yeah, no, I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah, that's particularly if you're looking for something that imitates a crab.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I think that's a big deal. I think we underestimate how these bass will feed on the crab and the shrimp. That's as a freshwater fisherman, you don't really get taught that that's something to pay attention to. But I learned pretty quick in my one time to tidal that they eat what's in front of them. They don't really they don't discriminate about what it comes to what they eat.
And I bet when a fiddler crab does get caught in the current, a bass will tear it apart. Another one's going to eat his, and one will eat his body, another one will eat his claw.
I'm sure if crab meat if bass have the same taste buds we do, they should really like crab. That's a pretty tasty dish.
Well, if you look at the picture I have of myself in my, I don't even know what you call it, my profile picture in Facebook, I'm holding that bass. That's a marsh bass.
Uh-huh.
You see how dark it is and how fat it is, because they sit there and they gorge on shrimp and crabs.
Yep.
And also there's cockahoe minnows down here, which look like cichlids.
Okay.
If you've ever done any aquarium hobbying.
Yeah, no, I haven't.
Well, they look like, well, like, you probably seen the fire Oscar down in, that's a
Huh.
cichlid. Fire
No.
Oscars are down in Florida,
Okay. Yeah. No, I've never seen that.
or tilapia.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen tilapia now.
That's also a cichlid.
I've
Um,
actually got a story about a tilapia. You got time for a funny story?
yeah, I do, but we have a comment here from Cajun Rob again. He said Cherokee is actually an Indian word for taking props and lower units at winter pool.
Yes, sir. Yeah, there's some big gnarly rock out there for sure. That's a good one. I have to remember that.
Well, let's hear your tilapia story.
So I was down in Florida, my first ever trip to Florida, and one of my good friends, Skylar Hamilton, fishes the Elite Series
I
here.
know him. He's been on the show. Yeah.
Yep. And so I was down in Florida, and I go through this residential canal, and I see these giant beds everywhere with this 10-pound fish sitting on it. And I know it's not a bass. I mean, you can tell when you look at it that it's not a bass. But my gut reaction is, okay, that looks like a carp. But carp don't sit on beds. And so I was so mind blown as to what this fish was. And so I call Skylar and I'm like, hey man, like I'm down here in Florida. I've never been, this has been 3 or 4 years ago before I had, the experience that I do now. And I said, I've never been. I see this fish. It's kind of acting like a bass. It's on a bed. I know it's not a bass. And so he's like, well, let me see through your glasses. And so like I put my phone through my glasses and I'm showing Skylar like what's going on. And he's like, dude, those are bass. And I was like, God, no, they're not. And I have fished for these fish for I don't know how long until another boat come in the cove. And he started dying laughing. And he was like, man, you've not been here much, have you? And I felt really, I didn't feel very smart at the moment. But that's where I got my first lesson on tilapia.
You'd had a hard time catching those.
Yeah, they were so spooky. I was like, man, these are the smartest bass ever.
The only way, when my dad lived down just north of Miami, the only way I could catch those things, because I too could see them, and I'm like, man, what are those, Dad? He goes, those are tilapia. Those are really good to eat, but they don't bite. I'm
Right.
like, yes, they do. They have to eat, Dad. He said, no, they don't bite. I said, yes, they do. Just like Dad said, the spotted bass don't bite.
Right.
So I'm like, you still have your fly rod that I bought you back when I was young? And he goes, yeah, I do. So I went and got it, and I started casting flies at him, and I caught one, just like you said, must have been pushing 6-8 pounds.
Yeah.
And I brought it in and, filleted it. Mom cooked it for us. It was beautiful.
I've heard those are, the actual ones that you can catch, the super fresh ones, I've heard they're incredible.
It was, we ate it right then for dinner. And it was great.
Yeah, that's special.
But okay, back to Carson-Newman.
Right.
So where is the championship going to be?
So we're heading to Winyah Bay, in Georgetown, South Carolina. It's about an hour south of Myrtle Beach.
Okay, is that a tidal fishery?
It is, yeah. It's a tidal fishery. Some of the rivers that kind of pour into Winyah Bay actually come out of Santee Cooper. So it's a there's some good fishing right there in the area for sure.
Wow. So, well, if that was me, just because I cut my teeth fishing. I mean, I'm talking like 5-6 years old. I was wading smallmouth bass streams.
Okay.
That's what I would be.
Yeah.
Not to say that there probably aren't any smallmouth there, but I would be going up those streams looking for whatever I could find. Spots.
Yeah.
Largemouth.
So one of the best rivers is actually off limits, and so we can definitely talk about it. But that's exactly a few years ago what some guys did down there on the bay is they ran to this river, and going super far up those tidal rivers, it seems like the tide affects it less. The further away from the ocean you get, and so you can get to a point where the fishing's a lot more stable. And there's definitely been some tournaments won that way.
That's exactly what I would be looking for.
Yeah.
Just my
tide confuses a lot of people. I mean, if you don't know how to really run the tide and time it well, running way up the rivers is definitely a way to kind of minimize that.
Another thing I can tell you, with all the charter boat captains and local fishing jocks I fished with down here, they tend to look for windswept points.
Okay.
If you can find, there are points everywhere. But if you have one that the wind is just pounding into and there's waves crashing over it, the guys will stop at that. And
Yeah, yeah, I saw that at the gym. Kind of, it was like um, when you found a place that the wind and the tide both hit pretty hard. And it would almost vary based on which way the tide was coming and stuff like that. But when you found that right mix of wind and tide, sometimes it even made almost an eddy on a point. You know, the tide was coming and the wind was coming in, and so those areas were really big players at the James. It was just hard to honestly, with that many boats, it was hard to get on the best ones because of.
Yeah, of course. Just stand in line, you know.
Yeah, that's the problem with the opens at 225 boats. I mean, you don't think about how much that has to change your tournament approach.
Well, back in the days when I would fish walleye tournaments, man, there were times when on the smaller rivers we fished where you literally got on a conveyor belt of guys trolling, key trolling passes, and
Yeah,
still, you get on it. I fished 5 times, not got one bite. Then I got on again, and a pot of walleyes came in, and I caught 2 on the same pass.
yeah, that's what's
You just never knew. But when I would fish bass tournaments, there was always so much water, like in La Crosse, Wisconsin, or up on the Winnebago chain in Wisconsin.
yeah.
So much water. You can have 200 boats there, and of course, key areas. There might be 20 boats that you can see, but we're still all respecting each other. We still all have a big bubble around us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the fishing world, there's been some good and some bad that comes out of that over the last few years. Fishing pressure has definitely increased, which has led to more sharing water, which is, you see it on TV. And so, you see more altercations on social media nowadays than you used to. But in reality, I feel like anglers as a whole have kind of learned how to share water maybe a little bit better than years past. And it all starts with being respectful and communicating, obviously. But
Respectful, chilling out.
yeah, yeah, we've.
Yeah, man. So the guy came up on. Yeah, he probably shouldn't have, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, no,
If you really are upset about it, get his boat numbers and report him.
yeah. No, there's, it's a fine line. It's been, that's been one of the hot topics in fishing. Is we all, me, you, and everybody else in the industry, we want the sport to grow, but the reality of it is we're playing with a resource that's not infinite, and so as
Yes.
it's going to be more pressure, and we almost have to deal with the ramifications of what we've tried to create.
Yes, and guys like me and you have worked tirelessly to grow the sport, and yes, we've created a monster.
Absolutely, but it's a monster that's put a lot of dollars into into the sport that we love, that's helped conservation all the way across the board. So it's take the good and the bad.
I do like the way the conservation is going, particularly the state of Texas with their share lunker program. If you release that, we'll give you a free replica.
Yeah.
I was going to release it anyways. I'm not going to keep a 9+ pound fish. No way. Or if you give it to us, so that we can breed it. Oh, heck yes, I'm going to give that to you.
Yeah.
So you can breed a 10-pound plus fish.
Yeah, that side of it's incredible. And then even just today, I met with the Tennessee State Tourism Director over at Douglas Lake at Dandridge Boat Ramp. And it's so cool because the amount of revenue that's been brought in through fishing, now they're reinvesting. The whole meeting was about the improvements they're about to make to the boat ramp that's going to help the community with walking trails, LED lights, and a bigger ramp and more parking. And so there's a lot of benefits that come out of the sport that we love so much.
That is awesome. That's wow. I love to see things like that. I'd love to see communities reinvest. When I was a guide, I worked. Talk about working tirelessly. I worked tirelessly to restock the lakes that I fished in. I would actually raise money to give to the Department of Natural Resources. So that, and what I wanted this is I want you to restock this lake with 10 to 12-inch walleyes.
Uh-huh.
So I'd give them $500. It's only going to buy about 200 fish, but that's 200 fish that have a astronomically larger percentage chance of making it to a 20-inch fish.
Right. Yeah. Better than the fingerling method.
Fingerlings are fry. Yeah. Much better. And, and also we were constantly adding structure to the lake, which, the muskie fishermen didn't like because they're going to lose their $30 lures. There was the days before $30 bass lures, And I
Yeah.
know $30, I know they get a whole lot more expensive than that, but I just use that as an example. But, I'd love to see that reinvesting. And that's what programs like yours at Cherokee-Newman, when you instill these kind of values in the people who you're bringing through. That's another reason I love the collegiate bass fishing, because people like you can instill values like, guys, just chill out when you're out there in the water. Do not get mad.
Not worth it. It is.
It's not worth it. All it's going to do is make bass fishermen look stupid. And next thing you know, they're going to start looking at tournament fishermen like we look at jet skiers. Come on.
Yeah. And I have been, I'm not going to sit here and act like I've never made a mistake, so early on in my fishing career, I was involved in a couple of run-ins where people were talking, and I should have left. It wasn't even worth sitting around and talking about it. It's not worth the reputation or the conflict or even just the stress level. We're out here to bass fish. I just need to get away from this situation. And so I've kind of learned that as we went along through my short years.
I'd be lying to you if I told you I'd never been involved in an altercation, particularly at a boat ramp. So,
yeah.
Yeah. When I was younger, I was a lot more feisty than I am now.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's been one of those things that, this particular situation, you take a step back and you realize that, first of all, you've got people watching you, not what you want to be known for. And then you think about, it was nothing personal, but tempers get high. You got money invested and you lose sight. My faith is the most important thing to me. And sometimes you get so nearsighted with what's happening right in front of you. And so it's, you got to ask for forgiveness. And I actually had a phone call with the fellow that we're talking about, and things were fine. We've got a good relationship now, and everything's, you move past it. So it's, that's a good note for younger anglers too, is, you're going to be in situations where you the way you wish you could, but, be mature, fix the situation, and learn from it.
And also for you aspiring tournament fishermen, before you get involved in a situation like that, you have to remember, if you want to be a tournament fisherman, you're going to need funding. And funding comes through sponsorship, and sponsorship is actually representing the company that invests in you. And they don't want to invest in somebody who has a reputation for starting fights on the lake.
Right. Yeah. No company. It's not. There's so many people out there that want to be a pro fisherman that you've got to put, as you say, you've got to stack the deck in your favor. You don't ever want to put, you don't want to give the other guy an upper hand by something silly.
Yes, because the company wants the best of the best representing them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they're, I don't normally talk about sponsorship on my show, but that was just applicable to what we're talking about right now. That, have some respect for yourself and your fellow fishermen. Be a good person on the water. Be a good steward of the resource.
Absolutely. Because we're all there for the same reasons. We're all there to have fun. It's our passion. And we're so, as we talked about a minute ago, the sport has grown. It's created some issues where you're running into people in the water, but really it's something we should all be thankful for. We got so many people doing what we love to do. It's a community. So we just have to remember that at all times.
And that's why I appreciate places like Carson-Newman, people like you who are teaching these people good ethics, because that's a big part of tournament fishing. Yeah,
absolutely. It's more as the years go on. I think it's just only going to get more prevalent, and so hopefully, if that's what I pray every night, is that hopefully I'll make an impact on some of these guys that come through the program, and hopefully they leave and they're good representatives of their faith and their families, and grow up to be good citizens of the world. That's what we hope.
I have seen a positive change in my lifetime. Back in the 80s when I was in high school, there was a bass tournament on this lake that Dad and I were out there fishing for crappies. It was during the crappie spawn, so we were up in the shallows, and the bass tournament anglers were up there looking for pre-spawn bass. Mm-hmm. And, one of them actually cast it out and cast it over my dad and my boat.
Right. Oh my gosh.
And my dad looked at him and he stood up. My dad is as big as I am now. and he took out his fillet knife and cut the guy's line.
Oh no!
And looked at him, just.
Yeah. Well,
I haven't seen anything like that happen since the 80s.
Well, and I think it's important too. We see the altercations on YouTube but we don't see the good. That's society as a whole is the news nowadays. It's all bad. So the reality of it is, I think there's still a lot more good people than probably what we see when we turn on
Absolutely. There's a whole lot more good people out there. Like I said, I've seen a positive change, and then the only reason I told that story is because I have not seen anything like that happen in a long time. And I've fished walleye tournaments where we're stacked on top of each other, and everybody's getting along. Everybody realizes that this is a bad situation we're all in, and we all realize that the walleyes are going to be in a very tight little pack down here. We can see them, but they're not biting because that they can't see this close to their heads.
Yeah,
they're so muddy
And I think
stories, on guys with the Bassmaster Elite, they come into a bay and they see that there's another elite angler in there, or a local. They're like, okay, I'll find my spot number.
Yeah, well,
it's time for Plan E,
Right. Well, I think it's important that we share those conversations about the times when we see it go good too, because there's been multiple situations where I've had an angler come up to me on a tournament day and say, hey, like I really need a fish. Like, do you care? And you say, no, come on in and fish. And then they return the favor for you a year later. And so there's so many good comments and situations that come that we just don't give the publicity they deserve, probably.
And as the head bass fishing coach for Carson-Newman, I assume you preach these values to your folks.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot through our. We've got 4 pillars, and that's integrity, unity. Those are just 2 of the pillars, and that's the type of stuff that we talk about. And we're so fortunate that we've got guys on the team who value the same things that we value. And most of the guys, not all, but most of the guys have a relationship with Christ, and I think that when you really take a step back and think about. I asked a question earlier in the year that, if Jesus was a fisherman, how would he handle these situations? And so I think that when you take a step back and you can look at it through a how you want to represent yourself lens, I think a lot of this stuff probably works itself out.
Sure. And I completely agree with you. Being a Christian myself, it has made it easier for me not to fight, actually happens every podcast.
Surprised it hasn't happened to me yet, Jay.
I just think I've been a better steward and a better. It's a lot easier for me to handle those. Whoops! I just lost him, and I was just about ready to ask him for his. Wow, that kind of threw me off there, guys. He'll probably be back. But I was just about ready to ask him. I think he probably. My goodness. As if I wasn't distracted enough. I was just about ready to ask him for his shout outs. Hunter Sales is a great fisherman. He's a great person. He's a great bass coach. And he's a bass coach of an absolute powerhouse bass team of Carson-Newman University over there in Eastern Tennessee. It was a pleasure having him here on the Bassin Magazine podcast. Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. I had a fantastic time talking to him. I really hope he comes back. But if he doesn't, guys, I appreciate every single one of you who come here and tune into the Bassin Magazine podcast. I certainly do. It's an absolute honor to be able to do a podcast for Bassin Magazine and talk to the Weekend Angler because even though I dreamed big and I'm continuing to dream big, I'm still a weekend angler and that's okay. And I'm not just saying that, just trying to sound new age or anything. It's just, weekend anglers are the backbone of the fishing industry. You guys, man, we just hit 50 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and end the podcast here, but I'm going to say, thank you for tuning into the Bassin Magazine podcast. Thank you, Hunter Sales, for taking time out of your very busy schedule to come and talk to us and our listeners here on the Bassin Magazine podcast. Thank you to Brad Ewell of Bassin Magazine for selecting me as the host of the Bassin Magazine podcast. And you know what, guys? Go on out there this weekend and have fun. Because remember, you only get to do this once. So have fun. With that, I'm Jay Angel, and I'm going to sign off.